Welcome to Midsummer Myths, the channel where the wildest neighborhood dramas, jaw-dropping HOA meltdowns, and unbelievable revenge stories come to life. If you've ever wondered just how far a suburban feud can go, you're about to find out, and trust me, today's story. It's not just petty, it's downright unbelievable. It all started on a quiet Saturday morning in the middle of our sleepy, oak-lined neighborhood. The kind of morning where the air smells like fresh-cut grass. The sun filters lazily through the leaves, and you can hear the hum of a distant lawnmower. My wife was still in bed, the coffee machine had just beeped, and I had one simple plan: to finally open my garage and roll out the classic 1968 Mustang I'd spent the last 2 years restoring. I had no idea that just 30 seconds later, I'd be standing in my driveway, blinking in disbelief, while my neighbor, let's call her Karen, was shrieking at the top of her lungs, phone in hand, screaming for the police. Here's the thing about Karen. She's the self-appointed guardian of the block. You know, the type clipboard in one hand, HOA handbook in the other, and an uncanny ability to appear the moment you so much as sneeze too loudly. I've caught her peeking over my fence, accidentally standing on my property during her morning walks, and once, bizarrely, photographing my trash cans because they were allegedly an inch too far from the curb. But that morning, she took it to a whole new level. I had just pushed the garage door button, watching that familiar rumble as it rolled up, sunlight spilling across the freshly waxed red paint of my Mustang. That's when I heard it, this sharp intake of breath, followed by, "Oh my God, that's my car." At first I thought she was joking. Who claims a neighbor's car with a straight face? But then she started pacing back and forth on the sidewalk like a guard dog that just spotted a trespasser. "You stole it," she screamed. "That's the car I just bought." Before I could even respond, she had her phone out, punching in 911 like she was calling in an armed robbery. Her voice was shrill, frantic, like she was narrating some dramatic made-for-TV crime. "Yes, I'm at redacted street address and my stolen vehicle is here, right now. The thief's in his garage." Now, I'm a patient man, but as someone who knows how quickly a misunderstanding can turn into a legal mess, I also knew this was bad, really bad. And the worst part, Karen looked deadly serious. That's when my mind started spinning. Why in the world was she so convinced this was her car? Was this some bizarre case of mistaken identity, or was something else going on? Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a stunt that would drag in the HOA, the cops, and half the neighborhood, ending in a way Karen never saw coming. And let's just say, she wouldn't be making wild accusations again anytime soon. Asterisk if you've never had a neighbor call 911 on you while you're holding a cup of coffee in one hand and a car wax rag in the other. Let me tell you, it's a surreal experience, because as soon as Karen started her "I'd been robbed" performance, I noticed blinds flicking open all up and down the street. You could practically hear the collective "oh" from behind the glass. This wasn't just Saturday morning anymore, this was free entertainment. The thing about Karen is that she thrives on an audience. And now that she had one, she was in full showtime mode. She started pointing at my garage like it was the crime scene of the century, her voice rising higher with every sentence. "I saw this car at the dealership yesterday. I paid for it. He must have stolen it before it was delivered." That claim didn't even make sense, but the more she said it, the more she seemed to believe it herself. I set my coffee down, walked to the edge of my driveway, and tried to keep my voice calm. "Karen, this car's been in my garage for 2 years. I rebuilt it from scratch. You've seen me working on it." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't try to play innocent. You're not fooling me. I have the receipt, I have the VIN, and the police will have you in handcuffs in 5 minutes." Now, here's where my stomach sank a little. She said, "VIN, vehicle identification number." How in the world would she have my car's VIN? That number isn't public, it's stamped on the dash and paperwork. Was she bluffing, or had she actually gotten it somehow? That's when the distant wail of sirens started drifting through the air. Karen's smug grin widened. She folded her arms, tilting her chin like she'd just won a lawsuit. "Oh, you're done now." The 2 patrol cars pulled up fast, lights flashing, and the officers stepped out, hands not on their guns yet, but definitely on high alert. My heart rate kicked up. This could go sideways fast if they believed her. Karen rushed toward them, waving her arms dramatically. "Officers, that's him. That's the thief. The car's right there in his garage." The lead officer, tall, mid-40s, looked like he'd been doing this long enough to spot nonsense, held up a hand to stop her. "Ma'am, let's get both sides before we jump to conclusions." I stayed where I was, calm but firm. "Morning, officers. I can prove this is my car. Title, insurance, restoration, photos, the whole history. I'll grab them if you'd like." Karen tried to interrupt, but the officer shut her down. "Ma'am, step back." "Sir, go ahead." Inside, I was still rattled. If she did have a VIN that matched mine somehow, this could turn into a very messy, very expensive legal battle. And knowing Karen, she'd drag it through every possible level of drama before admitting she was wrong. As I handed over my paperwork, I noticed Karen whispering to the other officer, probably spinning some elaborate tale about car thieves and innocent victims. The more I watched her, the more one thing became clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. And I had just decided something. If she was going to pull a stunt like this, I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to make sure she regretted ever stepping onto my driveway. Asterisk, if you've ever been in that split second where you realize someone is trying to ruin you and you decide you're not just going to defend yourself. You're going to flip the script. You'll understand what went through my head right then. Because, as the officer flipped through my paperwork, I saw his brow lift just slightly, like something wasn't adding up. In my favor, I leaned in, just enough to keep my voice low. "Officer, before we go further, I think you should know this neighbor has been harassing me for months. This isn't about a stolen car. This is about her wanting to make my life miserable." The officer glanced over at Karen, who was still shouting to his partner like she was the star witness in a high-profile case. I pointed toward my garage. "If you want proof, I have over 200 photos and videos documenting every single step of restoring that car, dates, timestamps, receipts for every part." That was the crack in the door I needed, because if I could get them inside to see the restoration history, they'd also see something else I'd set up weeks ago, a small security camera facing my driveway, and that camera had caught Karen snooping around my garage at least twice in the past month. I brought the officers in, scrolling through the photo archive on my laptop. Every image had timestamps, showing the car in various stages from bare frame to fully painted. I even had a picture of the day I finally installed the engine, grinning like a fool. The lead officer nodded slowly. "This is pretty thorough." Then I clicked open the security footage folder. "And this might interest you more." On screen, clear as daylight, was Karen at 11:47 p.m., leaning over into my driveway. phone flashlight on, peering into my garage window. Another clip showed her walking away from the driveway carrying a small notebook. The officer's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, can you come in here?" Karen strutted in, her expression ready to gloat until she saw the video. Her face drained of color faster than an unplugged neon sign. The officer's tone shifted. "Do you want to explain what you were doing on his property in the middle of the night?" Karen stammered. I was just checking on the neighborhood. I'm on the HOA board, ma'am. The HOA doesn't give you the right to enter someone's property without permission, especially not to obtain information to make false claims to police. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out in that moment. I knew I had her. But I didn't want to just win this round. I wanted to make sure she'd think twice before ever trying something like this again. And the next step, that would be my move. If you've ever had the perfect opportunity to turn someone's scheme back on them, you know it feels like holding a royal flush in a poker game where they've been bluffing all night. The officers, after reviewing everything, turned to Karen and said the magic words, "Ma'am, you're free to leave, but I'd recommend you speak to your attorney before continuing any further accusations." Karen stormed off, muttering something about lawsuits, and this isn't over. But for me, it was just beginning. The moment she was out of earshot, I asked the lead officer a simple question. Would it be worth filing a harassment report? I've got months of this on record. He didn't hesitate. Yes, and with that footage of her trespassing, you've got a solid case. So I spent the rest of the afternoon compiling everything texts she'd sent about my ugly project car. HOA violation notices she'd written up that mysteriously had no official board stamp, and the security footage of her nightly visits. But I didn't stop there. I also pulled up the HOA bylaws. Guess what I found? A clause that prohibited any board member from engaging in behavior that could negatively affect the reputation of the association. Trespassing and filing false police reports definitely qualified. That night, I sent the entire package for videos, timelines, and bylaw violations to every single HOA board member, copying the community email list. I kept the tone polite, factual, and professional. No name-calling, no emotional rants, just the evidence and a line that read, "Given the seriousness of these actions, I believe it's in everyone's best interest that this matter be addressed immediately." Within 24 hours, the neighborhood was buzzing, not because of Karen's version of events, but because everyone now knew the truth. By the end of the week, the HOA had called an emergency meeting. I didn't attend, but I heard what happened. Karen was stripped of her position, fined for bylaw violations, and barred from initiating any further complaints against me without unanimous board approval. That was a public defeat. But my favorite part, it was about to get worse for her. Asterisk, the sweet thing about karma is that it doesn't always arrive immediately, but when it does, it usually brings friends. A month after the incident, I was in my driveway waxing the Mustang when a tow truck rolled into the cul-de-sac. Guess whose brand new SUV it was hauling? Karen's. Turns out, in her rush to make my life miserable, she'd neglected to keep up with her payments. The bank repossessed it right out of her driveway. And because the neighborhood grapevine is faster than fiber optic, everyone knew within hours. I didn't say a word to her, didn't gloat, didn't smirk, just gave a friendly little wave as the tow truck rolled past. But inside, oh, it was satisfying. After that, Karen kept her distance. No more false reports, no more HOA violations, no more midnight snooping. She even started parking at the far end of the street to avoid driving past my place. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd called 911 claiming I stole a car that was mine, and in the end, the only person who lost a car was her and me. I just kept on enjoying my weekends, polishing my Mustang, knowing that in the long run, the best revenge wasn't yelling, wasn't fighting it, was letting her hang herself with her own rope. Still, every now and then, I catch her looking at my garage from across the street, her eyes narrowing just a little, and I can almost hear her thinking, how did I lose that battle so completely? The answer's simple. You can't outplay someone who's playing by the rules when you're making them up as you go.